I had a dream that night. I believe it was a dream. In the dream, I woke up from sleeping. I saw myself lying beside a creek in a patch of grass, surrounded by various wildflowers. A bare spot in front of me led down to the water. I could see the waterway, in both directions, from where I laid. Behind me was a sparse forest. Although thin, there were several kinds of summer fruit trees mixed in with evergreens, all standing behind a patch of blueberry and huckleberry bushes. Several bird nests covered two small trees to the side of the berries. One small yellow and grey finch flew up to one of the nests. Immediately, three little heads popped up begging to eat. She fed them and was off again hunting for more. Then I noticed half of both trees were a-cover with climbing purple clematis. The flowers were in full bloom and being managed by a group of large black bumblebees. I remembered whenever I saw purple flowers in early spring, they always attracted those large black bumblebees. They were the first bees I saw in spring. Now, they were buzzing from flower to flower as they gathered nectar, accompanied by the sound of birds singing in the background. I lay there for a while listening and watching. I felt comfortable even though I was lying on the ground. Fortunately, it was a warm and pleasant evening. Then I heard children laughing. I sat up and looked downstream where four children were playing in the water. One of them turned my way and pointed at me. They laughed while waving as I must have seemed out of place. I smiled and waved back. Soon after, a vehicle appeared out of the sky and landed next to them. A woman got out saying, "Come on kids, it's time to go." The children turned to wave goodbye, and got into the craft. Afterward, it darted away, disappearing back into the sky. I looked around while saying out loud, "What a beautiful landscape." I stood to my feet to get a better look. There was a path leading upstream beside the water. So, I followed the path until it came to another path crossing the one I was on. That path was carpeted with well-manicured grass and lined on both sides with all kinds of wildflowers, most I did not recognize. I took that path to the right which led to a small bridge stretching over the waterway. Once across the bridge, I noticed a golden city up ahead. It reached to the sky and glistened of precious stones in the light of the setting sun. It drew my breath. I felt compelled to go there. While walking on the path towards the city, I came across an open field to my right covered with those same wildflowers. I noticed another group of young children off in the distance coming down a hill picking wishes, blowing them into the air. Each one was so full of life, skipping, talking to one another, laughing, and coming in my direction. All the while, a tremendous feeling welled up inside me. The closer the children got, the more my heart swelled in my chest. A little girl who seemed oblivious to anything other than those flowers, ran up putting her arms out. I bent over to pick her up. She kissed me on the cheek. She said, "Hi Daddy." I kissed her on the forehead and said, "Hi, sweetheart." I had to brace myself to keep from falling over backward when the rest of the children ran up hugging me, dragging me down to my knees. My arms were not long enough to get around them all. I didn't even question how or why this was happening, as I hugged them and held them close, all 5 of my children. I grabbed Keith, who had died on Earth many years back. It seemed like yesterday, and I held him so tight it hurt. I told him I will never let go. I still miss him all the time as I cried with joy. 4 of my children were grown. Yet, here they were as young children hugging, holding me like when they were young. "I love you," I kept saying. Each child said it back. Also, I saw it in their eyes. I was incapable of doing any more than holding them, telling each one I love you over and over. "I love you Keith, I miss you son every day." "Jesse, I still remember you this way, so full of joy with such incredible energy. I love you." "Casey, you have always been independent. I wish you hadn't moved away. It's good to have you here with me. I love you." "Crystal, I missed so much of your life. I thought of you daily through many tears. I love you." "Sophie, I promised to never forget you. I kept my promise. I will always keep my promise." "She always worried I would forget her. I will always love you sweetheart." With the glance, A simple comment. I knew they had to go. While leaving, Casey said, "We will wait for you, Dad." I wondered what he meant, but for whatever reason it seemed right. It seemed natural. In the same fashion, they went back the same way, running, skipping, laughing, picking flowers and blowing wishes into the wind. My heart went with them, for sure. As my kids reached halfway through the field, they were no longer children. They had become adults. Just then, another group of children came over the hill, running towards them, joining them. They were my grandchildren. I shouted as loud as I could, "Praise the living God. I love you." Well, that's what I said. When I saw how loving my kids were with their own children, it gave me a wonderful burst of joy within my heart. I wanted this adventure to end right then. I wanted to go with them more than anything else I could think of. We could live together forever wherever. It was the most important feeling I have ever had. I started after them, and I would catch up. Then, I heard a voice behind me. It stopped me in my tracks. It was Keith's voice, and he was standing behind me. He was no longer a child, but a teenage boy of 15. The age he was when he died. "You can't go, Dad. It is not the right time," he said in a low, calming voice. I didn't even know how to respond, but knew no matter what I said, he was right and it hurt. It caused me to become like a dumb man, unable to think or talk. I stood staring as they disappeared over the hill. Gaining a modicum of strength, I said, "I would have gone with them. I want to go with them, still." Then I asked, "What do I do now?" He put his arm down on my shoulder, being much taller than I, and said, "Come on. Let's go." I put my arm around him as he led me towards the city. "Write the story, Dad. Write it for their sakes," he said. I let that sink in and then turned my attention to the city. I inquired, "What city is up ahead, son?" "It is the city of God," he replied. Then, I asked, "Are we going there?" "Considering your condition, you can't go there yet, but I hoped we could walk together." There was a pause, then I said, "I missed you so much, son." "I know," he answered. "This is so much to take in. I don't know if I can handle it." "You'll be fine. You'll be fine because this is where you belong at this moment. Everything is going according to plan, Dad," he replied. Then, I asked a dumb question, "Am I dead?" He answered, "No. But remember, anything is possible. You must have faith." We walked for a while talking about how things went on Earth after he died. I did most of the talking. I explained how it was the hardest period in my life, how I got mad at God for a time. It took God a while to get my attention. He said, "I'm grateful God got your attention, Dad. It is one thing to lose someone on earth, it is so much worse to lose them here in heaven, Father. I have been and will continue waiting for that day when we will all be together in God's kingdom. Dad, please keep fighting and praying for the rest of our family." "I have every intention of doing so, son." "Yes, I know you will, Father." Then, he turned and hugged me. When he turned to walk away, he faded away as if walking into a heavy mist. I watched him until he disappeared, took one more look at the city, and woke up. I noticed the morning sunbeams falling through the trees outside the window. It was everything I had expected. I want to wake up to this every morning. I laid there while contemplating the dream. Honestly, I wasn't sure whether it was a dream. After all the times being moved from one place to another, it may have been another unexpected trip. It was amazing to have such a time with my children. I longed for it again. Under my breath, I whispered to God, "Take me back. I would have stayed there forever." Surprisingly, I did not wake up sad, and wondered if I had the dream because of last night, the small house with the barbecue. What a contrast. It made me happy to dream of the kids, especially Keith. Since the day he died, I had had many dreams about him. Most of them left me in tears, but not this time. I recalled one dream I had of a small puppy, abandoned by his owners who moved away. The family left him by himself. He lived under a deck off the back of the house in the backyard with a fence. The house remained vacant. When he heard a noise, he'd come running out with his tail wagging, hoping someone had come for him. No one ever came. After a time, he gave up hope of anyone ever coming to take him home. In the middle of the dream, I saw myself standing on the back deck calling to him. He came running out, but didn't even turn his head to see if anyone had come. It had happened in his mind too many times. I remembered, while he ran to the back fence, while I was trying to get his attention, I understood his brokenness. The hope he once had wasn't there anymore. Again, he believed no one would come for him. As he reached the back fence, he turned, staring in my direction. He stared right past me as if I were not there. When he turned, he was no longer a puppy. He was my son at 3 years old. He'd gone insane from a broken heart. I woke up crying. I cried whenever I was alone for a long time after that dream. This time, I was not miserable. It lifted my spirit. I guess my sadness was changing to hope. I never have been one to cry in many situations. Perhaps, getting older has changed me. Time was my conclusion, although, where my kids are concerned, I will always wear my heart on my sleeve. I looked around the living room, confident I was not dreaming now. Just like most of my experiences these past few days, they contained every ingredient of reality. What to do about it, I didn't know. So, I laid in my comfortable bed and gazed at the morning sun dancing around the park outside my window.